But our headline is this: the first point in Major League Soccer for FC Cincinnati in a place that I don't think any of us thought they would get that point. Their supporters are pointing out pithy commentary on Twitter. The schadenfreude around MLS is strong, but this is history, Doyle. This is a huge result for Calen Carr.
This is absolutely, this is a fantastic result for them, and it came out feeling a lot like last week when they played that kind of inexplicably high line, and they didn't get pressure to the ball, and Gressel plays Joseph through, and you're like, oh, this is going to be 3-0 win. We've seen this before. Okay, Cincinnati, regroup, go home, get your points there. But they actually stayed, I think, more compact after the goal. They still played a little bit too high, but it didn't matter. Atlanta didn't have any ideas to break them down, and since he took advantage of that, and when Kenny Saif came on, he had ideas in central midfield. He had the ability to connect passes that they weren't hitting earlier in the game. They weren't hitting in week one, and they deserved their goal.
Yeah, he made a big difference, but make no mistake, FC Cincinnati got stronger as the game went on. They seemed to realize that they were still in the match within striking distance. They had one called off, just shades of offside from Fernando Adi, but they didn't give up. They stuck together, and then they find their nice breakthrough moment, Roland Lamah, with a great finish to the far post. For an expansion side, their first point in MLS on the road in front of 70,000 people. This will do wonders for their confidence heading into their home opener.
First appearance for Kenny Saif. He just came from Anderlecht in Belgium. You've seen him with the U.S. national team. As they begin to gel just a little bit, because it's just 2 games. Let's not go overboard here. As they add these new pieces, is this more like what they can be, or is this more of a ceiling early in the season on the road against Atlanta?
I don't want to diagnose it too far out. What I'll say is that Kenny Saif gives them a lot of what they needed. If you look at that team, there's not much creativity in central midfield on that roster other than him. So he came in and it was plug and play. And when you have a roster with 15 defensive midfielders and center backs, well, you're going to have some solidity behind him. So it covers for his lack of defense, really. That's why he wasn't playing for Anderlecht. He doesn't defend much, but they can afford a player like that. He's a luxury player, but you saw what the luxury is. The luxury is hitting that pass and getting that point. And yeah, as you said, a really nice finish from Roland Lamah as well.
Their supporters are on a high, Calen. How long should they dwell on this result?
I think the danger is actually not to get wrapped up in this one. I think they should use this as something to build on because it is that big of a result. I don't care if you can say, oh yeah, Atlanta United gave them too much or left them in the match for too long. To go down to Atlanta United and get a point on the road is fantastic for this team, this confidence. They should really enjoy this one and see if it can build on this to continue going forward into the season.
Alan Koch has got a big job ahead of him. They go home to Portland next week. Nippert Stadium is going to be rocking. Here's what Koch had to say after this draw.
I felt like what was important for us this week was to show growth, and growth how we responded against Seattle in terms of how we came and trained all week. Training was first class today, and the players got rewarded. They did exactly what we asked them to do, and thankfully we got a point today.
Yeah, but of course they were a little bit spoiled with the results, of course, of last season. Everybody expected, and that's also normal. But everybody also saw what happened with Toronto when they played the Champions League last season, and out of nothing we weren't used to play every 3 games, and so every 3 days a game, and now I think in 17 days we play 5 games or something like that. Yeah, that's a lot.
Hasn't taken long for Frank de Boer to draw the ire of Atlanta United fans. That word spoiled, Doyle. That's the word that folks are really jumping on right now. What do you make of that? Why use that word?
I wouldn't have used that word if I was the head coach of the team because you're just begging for the comparison. Like, yes, they were spoiled by having a fun, exciting team that wins a lot. And now the reality is, now that he's coaching, they're not going to have that. Like, there's no other way to interpret that. And I think if you look on Twitter and if you look, on Dirty South Soccer and if you look on the comments of MLSsoccer.com, the fans they're listening to exactly what Frank de Boer said.
Yeah, I think the tone was wrong. I think it was way wrong, in fact, because you don't want to mention and say, look, the fans were spoiled. Then he mentioned Toronto FC, which if you're an Atlanta United fan, you don't want to say that that's what this team is going to fall into.
Don't draw those comparisons.
It's also false because the Red Bulls had a long run in CCL last year as well. And what did they do? They went and set the single season points record in the regular season. If you have the confidence and the know-how to rotate your squad, which he hasn't done.
No, the standard is for a reason, and they should be held to it. Joseph Martinez was the first one off the field. He looked furious. I'm sure he's not going to be looking for any excuses or saying, oh, we've had too many matches in a week. The ideas weren't there for this team. They just kept serving in aimless balls into the box. They didn't come up with anything to change the game as it went on. Look, I think there's real issues with this squad right now, and if you're another team in MLS, you've seen what DC United did in the opening week. Now you've seen an expansion team go down there that just got blown out on the road in their last match against Seattle. So I think if you're an MLS team, look, I think Atlanta will eventually figure it out because I think PT Martinez is going to get stronger. But I think teams are going to start smelling blood right now.
There is a midweek game coming up in Atlanta against Monterrey with a 3-0 deficit for the Five Stripes. What's going on with Atlanta? How can they fix this? How can they improve? Bobby Warshaw is at the board right now trying to help us understand that. Bobby, take it away.
We're tackling the big questions today, guys. We're going for the big stuff. All right. And if you're going to think about how can Atlanta United improve their form, there's a laundry list of things, right? You could say they should be more aggressive defensively, that they need to be better in transition, but it all has to be within the framework of who Frank de Boer is a coach. And Frank de Boer is a possession coach. He wants to win games by using the ball. And here we see an Atlanta United possession, fast forwarded, so you don't have to sit and watch this whole thing. And we cherry-picked this instance, but this instance happened over and over. And here's the tough balance as a possession team. You don't want to give the ball away because you can't be a possession team if you do useless turnovers, but on the flip side of that, you have to be willing to risk the ball. You have to be willing to put the ball into a tough spot and put your teammate in a tough spot to pull defenders out. And here, if we look at Cincinnati's defending, and Cincinnati deserves a ton of credit because their defensive shape was excellent. Their 2 lines of 4, their block, they forced Atlanta United to go wide. But what that means is that Atlanta United needs to find a way to pull players out. Here we see Leonardo Bertone. He's in the spot. He's in the area that Atlanta United wants to attack, somewhere in this part of the field. So in order to get Leonardo Bertone out, you have to play somebody. You've got to, here we see Joseph Martinez checking back. You've got to play Joseph Martinez to make Leonardo Bertone come out 3 or 4 yards. If you don't make that pass and you don't force defenders to make decisions, as you watch this, look at all the options that Atlanta United bypasses. They end up going around and serve cross after cross, but look at this. Look at all the short options that they could do through the middle to pull Cincinnati out. And within the framework of who Frank de Boer is as a head coach, it has to be about possession. Atlanta United has to figure out how they're going to beat teams by using the ball. And you can't be an effective possession team unless you're willing to risk it, unless you're actually willing to lose the ball, because that is only actually how you manipulate defenses, guys. And until Atlanta United figures that out in training this week, until they're willing to actually put their players in tough spots to move defenses, I'm not sure how they can improve as a possession team.
The biggest danger for me is you see Joseph Martinez coming that far back. He shouldn't even be in that picture there. And the whole thing just looks static at times as far as trusting and moving the ball. I think eventually when Escobar comes back, you'll see Gressel move back into the middle, which I think will make a big difference for that team in the middle of midfield.
Got to connect the midfield and the attack at this point, but you got to figure out that back line as well.